All right. Welcome to anyone who's joining. Give a few minutes for people to join. Welcome to Crystal. Good to see you guys. Crystal's joining us on YouTube. Just give a few minutes for people to show up. And today I'm getting back on here. I apologize. I haven't been as consistent as I would like to be doing these lives. I've been really wanting to do them at least once a week. And yeah, so here I am. Okay. Freeman Wachuca Lamar Chata. Wow, that's quite a name. Grand Rising, my friend. Grand Rising to you as well. Great to have you here. Let me know in the comments if you guys are brand new or if you're coming back. Obviously, I'll recognize some of you guys, some of your names. And today what I want to do on this live Q&A is to do just that, to answer questions. And then in between that, I'll probably intersperse some comments and updates about what's been going on with the Freedom Studio, which is the new rebranding of conditionalacceptance.com. So it's a work in progress, but I want to start to share more about where we're taking all of this because it is a great new endeavor. So drop your questions into the chat wherever you're joining, on Facebook and or on YouTube. I think those are the only two places I'm streaming at the moment. Got some new folks here. Greg, Tiny One. Welcome. Freeman says, I follow you and research things you have shown me. It just takes time to make sure I do things right. Yes, it does. Yes, it does take time. We don't want to rush. That's one of the big things that I've learned is these things do take time. And it's better to be, so I value thoroughness and completeness over speed. That's one of the things I've had to learn maybe the hard way is if you want to be, if you want to have success, it's more important to be thorough than to be fast. So great insight. But yeah, if you have specific questions, in the meantime, since there aren't any questions yet, I'll just post it. I'll just share a few comments. The reason I rebranded to the Freedom Studio is I was looking to create a brand or a name, basically, where we could more accurately encompass the full scope of what we're doing. So conditional acceptance, we're going to continue to use that as a process. It's basically an administrative process, but it's not the only thing that we're doing. We've expanded the scope. In fact, a big part of what we're going to be doing, or what we are doing, I should say, has to do with operating privately and more specifically setting up your trusts. Setting up trusts, organizing yourself to operate from the private in order to protect your assets, in order to kind of take yourself out of operating entirely in the public, in order to have more success, and also to just kind of free yourself from the tyrannical nature of being subject to all the statutes. So I'd love to hear if you've already been setting up your private trusts. I'd love to hear how your progress is. So definitely share that in the chat as well. I just hired a pair of attorneys in Pakistan, couple, and they're going to help me to review a new trust indenture for a new private trust that I'm going to set up, and I'm going to be setting up many of them. So this is just the next one. And looks like someone has a question. Let me just pull that up. Do we need to file an affidavit of repudiation or a I assume you meant declaration. So what I recommend is that you and everyone establish your foundational paperwork. So foundational paperwork is really two things. It's your status correction, and status correction, when I say that, it's not just one document. So keep that in mind. These are processes. These are private processes that contain multiple steps. So you're going to want to establish your status correction. That's what allows you to move from operating in the public, which is how most people have been operating, as the surety for your debtor, essentially treating you like you are the debtor, and moving, making it clear that you are now operating as the private man or woman. Okay. And then your SPC, or secured party creditor, also known as the UCC contract trust, that's where you basically take control of your public entity, your ens legis. So instead of just being the beneficiary of that and the surety, of course, which is where you get into all the trouble, now you are basically you are acting as a trustee with full authority. And if you've been studying trust law and how trusts work, the trustees are the ones that have all the power. Essentially, they have very, depending on the trust, they have almost unlimited power. It's pretty incredible. So when you do this, everything you do after that is going to be more successful. Every affidavit that you create, every common law process is going to have more success for a couple of reasons. One is because you're going to have it not only clear here who you are, but you're going to have made it in effect in the private, but you've also given notice on the public side. So the public now knows that you're operating from the private. Okay. And then the nature of all your relationships will change. So I also recommend, of course, that you work with someone, an educator or a mentor, to help you finish those processes, because they are pretty extensive. We do not have an in-house process for SPC and status correction, but we do have strategic partnerships with folks like Creditor Academy and Divine Trust Babies, who are providers who do walk you through the entire process, and they provide documents. Okay. So you can explore those, working with them to complete that. But I would recommend doing that on the front end, because it's a one-time event. It's not something you have to keep going back and doing. That's what makes it valuable. Okay, so please try to ask questions that are very specific. Try to ask more specific questions. Ask better questions. That way I can give you better answers. So how to do status correction. So you're going to want to get with, like I said, with a provider. So the two providers that I recommend the most are Creditor Academy and Divine Trust Babies. Creditor Academy, you can find them right here on YouTube. He's got a great channel. For Divine Trust Babies, let me share a link. I have shared it before. I actually did an interview with her recently. You can go check it out on the channel, on the YouTube channel. But let me share a link so you can find her more easily, because she's not, I'm not sure she's on YouTube. Do you have a class on how to do paperwork? Which paperwork specifically? If you could clarify again, try to ask more specific questions. I'll give you better answers. Okay, not giving you a hard time, but the more specific you can be, the better an answer I can give you. Crystal, thanks so much. I really appreciate that. Taking your course has been life-changing. I've already recommended it. That's awesome. I appreciate you. I appreciate you very much. And appreciate having people in community. And we meet every single week on private Zoom meetings as part of the membership. It's been consistently about 30 to 50 people showing up every week, somewhere in that range, 30 to 50 people. Sometimes it's a little more. And we always have a nice, healthy mix of some new folks and some folks who have been with us almost since the beginning, since about April when we started. So yeah, this started in April, so it's been, what is that, 8 months, 9 months? It's been fantastic so far. Yeah, Roy, I'm not sure what's going on, but you're going to need to articulate your question more specifically. If you're not able to do that or you don't want to, that's cool. You could also come to a private study session and we could talk it through. Sometimes it's easier that way. But I can't answer questions that aren't well formulated. I want you guys to be successful. So for the meantime, with the rebranding, it's taking a little bit of time to roll it out. So you're kind of seeing it in little bits and pieces. We still have the existing website. We haven't launched the new website yet, but you'll see the new brand rolling out little by little. We have a free community. It's a private community, but it is free to join on Telegram and Discord. And you can go to the website, and that's where you can join. There's links to join either community. I will tell you that if you can join on Telegram, that community is much more vibrant. It's much more active. But for some folks who prefer Discord, we do have that as well. You do not need to be a paying member to join those communities. Those are open. They are private. They're not public. Just to clarify, you guys know what I mean by that. But they are free to join. There's no monetary payment. Yep. Creditor Academy is right on YouTube. You could just search Creditor Academy on YouTube. It's easy to find his channel, Paul Michael. He's going to be going live later today. And Divine Trust Babies, I already dropped a link. So you can find her information there. You might also want to watch the recent interview that I did with Divine Trust Babies. And get a little more sense of her work. Collaboration is important. No one of us has all the answers, so we collaborate in order to get more done effectively. And I want to encourage you guys to do the same thing. You should be creating relationships, connecting with people, even meeting locally, setting up your local groups, and collaborating in that way. Do we need UCC1 financial statement? So first of all, it's called a UCC1 financing statement, to be precise. And a UCC financing statement does not establish a lien or a security interest. What it does is it gives public notice that a security interest exists, a valid security interest exists, and the UCC will reference the security agreement, the underlying security agreement that validates and basically has created that security interest. Okay. So when you say that, what specific process are you talking about? What security interest are you talking about? Are you talking about for the secured party creditor, which is also known as the UCC contract trust? Are you talking about a different one? So try to be more specific. But remember, UCC is just the public notice that a private interest exists. Okay, Never's getting a bunch of comments now. Yeah, the private sessions are for members only. If you want to consider membership, it's let me just drop the link here. We have a pretty successful membership. We've got more than 1,000 members, I believe. And like I said, usually 30 to 50, sometimes more, will show up for a study session. We do them every week. So people will show up, you know, based on their need. Go ahead and share that link. So if you want to consider membership, you can join there. And then you will have access to the weekly sessions. They do alternate. We do alternating Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we go in a bit deeper. And it's because we're doing it on Zoom, everybody has a chance to meet each other. You can speak and ask your questions. You can share your stories. So it's a little more intimate versus just posting a question here. So this is more just to open it up. Lisa Marie says, I like Creditor Academy. Yeah, they have great information. I've learned a lot. I've been learning a lot from them. I learned enough to establish my first private business trust, irrevocable business trust, and then set up the banking for that. And I've been going through that process. So yeah, Paul Michael's doing some really great work. I appreciate very much what he's doing. I consider him, I've met with him a couple of times, one-on-one, online, not in person, even though I was in Washington State. We didn't actually meet in person, but I think he's got very high quality, and I appreciate the work that he's doing. That's why I'm comfortable sharing, you know, basically giving him an endorsement, which I don't do I do for almost nobody. I mean, you guys probably notice I don't really recommend hardly anyone at all. Benigno says, nice, you're the man, Brody. I'm not sure who Brody is in this case. UCC finance statement about ABC filing commercial liens. Again, before you get to the UCC one, make sure that you're clear on what the underlying security agreement is. And I use the word agreement because what does that tell you? What does the word agreement tell you? It's based on consent. Okay, there has to be an underlying consent. Okay. Now, the consent could consist of an unrepudiated or unrebutted affidavit. But again, if you want to use the private administrative process, I highly recommend that you do your status correction first and your secured party. How do we set up a local group? The way that I can help you is go to the community. Let me post that link in the chat. Again, this community is free to join. We do have a private community for our members only, but this is a community that anyone can join. You don't have to pay to join. And in that community, we usually have links, or I'm sorry, topics where you can basically network with people based on your geography. So there's a topic to find study partners or people to collaborate with. So go ahead and post, and you know, quality in, quality out. So when you make these posts, introduce yourself, talk a little bit about yourself, your background, maybe even leave an audio clip so people can hear your voice. Say where you live, who you're looking for. Be specific. Be specific. We haven't formally as an organization facilitated setting up local groups, but I see more and more interest. So that's something that we may do in the near future. If there's continuing growing interest to do that, we may do that, because I love meeting. I love those meetings as well. And I know we're going to, people are going to get a lot more done if they can sit down over a cup of coffee or shake hands on a deal. And, get stuff done doesn't mean just conducting your administrative process. It also means doing business together in the private, establishing private contracts, establishing private member associations, which brings me to another announcement. I'm happy to announce that Kathleen Acker Ramsey, whom I recently interviewed on my YouTube channel, is now an official partner of the Freedom Studio. We just signed an agreement and we're just getting started. So you won't see a lot yet publicity wise, but we're going to be ramping that up. And go watch the interview I did with her. She's an expert on contracts, private member associations, conditional acceptance, secured party. She's got a lot of great expertise. It's tremendous to have her on our team as a partner, to be able to offer services to our community and education. So the main thing that she's been focusing on is teaching people how to create private member associations. So if that's something that you're interested in learning about, keep an eye out. I'll be making more announcements, but I'm super stoked that Kathleen decided to partner with the Freedom Studio. I think it's going to be very valuable for you guys. Yay, another live. Great to see everyone. Hey, Z. I think I've seen you lurking on some of my other lives, so it's good to have you back here. Appreciate you. Anthony asked, does one need to have a status change in order to use 1099A? No, however, I'm not teaching or focusing on use of 1099A. I'm not sure what use you're looking to make of it. We don't really have any education around that, so I'm not sure how to answer your question. Other than I don't believe that there's any status change required, because it's a treasury form, it's a transaction report. Could you have more success with anything you do with a status change? Yes, that's why I'm saying that status correction and SBC is the first step, because it's a one-time change and then you're opening the door. And it's also like the main benefits, I think, are not just external, because it is a private process. The main benefits are also internal, because you're going to be much more clear in your own mind what you're doing. Okay, there's going to be a lot less confusion. See what other questions are coming up. Does status change affect owning a business? In what way? Like, it's a very general question. You can own a business either with it, without your status corrected. The status correction is not so much for whether you can own a business. And first of all, let's just clarify owning a business. The way I set up my businesses, the way I've learned to do it, is I don't own any of them. They're owned by private trusts, and I'm usually a trustee, not necessarily always, but I'm typically a trustee. I could also be the grantor. I could also be the beneficiary if I wanted to. Can't be all three for an irrevocable trust, but you could be like the grantor and the trustee, or the grantor and the beneficiary, or you could find someone else to be the grantor and you could be the trustee and the beneficiary. But basically, the businesses I'm now setting up are not owned by me. They are owned by private trusts. Okay, so that's a step forward, and that's completely separate from your status. However, again, your status correction is going to help you across the board. Silent Work says, nice work, David. Appreciate that. Appreciate the feedback. Okay, Benino clarifying his previous statement. I need to catch up on my young people talk. How old do you guys think I am? You're not going to offend me if you tell me I'm like 69 or 70 or something. Just kidding. Aaron says, Aaron or Aaron or Aaron. Aaron. David, hello, sir. How are you? That's good. Good to have you here. Just looking for some good questions. Against individuals responsible for fraud. Well, fraud is a statement that you can apply to many things. If you can be more specific, it can give you more specific help. What has to be done before the filing UCC-1? Well, there has to be some kind of security interest in some property, or there has to be some instrument that the UCC filing is basically giving notice of. So in equity, for example, there are certain certifications that are they're not liens, but they do represent that there's a liability. There's a valid liability. And that can also be notified using a UCC-1. That's in equity. Now, in the secured party / creditor process, the specific document that's being noticed is the private security agreement, which includes a $100 million bond, which is essentially the insurance policy for that private security agreement between you and your debtor, which is your public fiction. Okay. So essentially the UCC is just a latter step in the entire process of it's not the starting point. Roy asked, can you tell about steps you went through, recent win? Well, I was able to set up, I've been learning how to set up the private irrevocable trusts, the business trusts. Thanks again to Creditor Academy for teaching great information on that regard. And I was able to establish the trust and a public corporation, a new LLC under the trust, and then set up the banking for that. For that one, I've set it up with Wells Fargo, but I'm actually going to be working with different banks. I'm not going to be limiting myself to just one bank, because I've heard that there's a couple of different banks that are I'm talking about US banks, because if we look at the whole world, it's a whole different story. But in the US, Wells Fargo and certain other banks are considered to be more favorable to when you start operating privately, to start to tender those negotiable instruments, move them through more effectively. So I'm kind of in the early days on that, but everything's been kind of running smoothly, knock on wood. So I'm very pleased about the progress so far, and just looking to keep moving forward in that process. My Slinsky 11, I just love your videos. Thanks for doing what you're doing. I appreciate you. I enjoy it. and I'm very committed to this. This is a daily process for me. I take Saturdays off because I don't want to burn out. I never work on a Saturday. Um, but and I'm trying to work less on Sundays so I can just kind of ramp up. I usually do something on Sunday, and honestly, for me, it doesn't really feel like work. I mean, of course, sometimes I have to push myself, push through some resistance, and I don't necessarily sleep well every night. So, I mean, I have to deal with things like that, just like you do. But the joy of it and the sense of purpose is always there. And I have no intention of stopping. I'm going to keep going on this. So I appreciate that. So Z says 40s. You're probably guessing my age. You're already on my good side, Z. You're already on my good side because I'm in my 50s. So I appreciate that. If you don't cancel the debt, Lisa Marie, what are you trying to accomplish? I think you're kind of getting stuck in a loop here. What is the specific outcome that you're looking to achieve? What is your objective? Okay. My objective is through this platform to help you and others, to help as many people as possible learn how to operate in the private, learn how to protect their assets, learn how to conduct commerce from the private, using the public side as necessary, but not identifying as being in the public, creating separation and reclaiming their sovereignty in that way, and now being subject to just the laws of nature, just natural law, which is very simple. Don't harm others. Don't steal that which doesn't belong to you. Do everything with voluntary consent. So the laws of nature are very simple compared to statutes. So that's my objective, to keep putting that out there. So what are you trying to accomplish that I can help you to achieve? Restore the Republic says Ohio has the first common law court operational now. Cool. It'd be very interesting to hear more about that. There's different jurisdictions. There's common law. There's equity. I've been studying equity now for about 3 months, and it's fascinating. It's a completely different jurisdiction. It was created actually to address certain shortcomings perceived in the common law, being too rigid to deal with, to being inflexible to deal with how to create equitable outcomes. So that's how equity came about. But there is a place for common law, and a lot of these processes that we do on the private are common law processes. When you establish a trust, most of the time, if it's not a statutory trust, and hopefully you're not creating a statutory trust, it's going to be established in common law. So it'd be very interesting to hear more about what they're doing in Ohio. That's the first time I'm hearing about that. It'd be very interesting to hear more about that. Bebo, just Bebo, 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 Bebop. Do you have, Bebo has atrocious spelling here, but I'm just going to interpolate it. Do you have to be a member to be in the study group? Yes. In our study group, yes. You can create your own. And I actually encourage people to create local study groups and set them up any way you need to. You can set up a PMA as a study group. In fact, that's a great exercise. Set up a private study group and make it a private member association so that you have a higher level of commitment. So it's operating entirely in the private, can't be touched from the public side. But you have very specific agreements of attendance, and not just anyone can walk through the door. So I would encourage you to do that. But yes, for our private study sessions, you would need to be a member. If I change my status, can I still receive Social Security? Yes. I'm 75 when it's too late. It's never too late. It's never too late. If you're alive, it's not too late. Now, when you die, if you decide to reincarnate and come back, you're going to have to start all over again. And that's a different story. But if you choose to do that, and I'm not making a recommendation one way or the other, but as long as you're here, it's never too late. And the Social Security is happening on the public side. When you change your status, all you're doing is you're creating a separation. You're saying, I am now the private living woman who's not in the public. Okay, but that's not necessarily a rescission of the public contract. Okay, that would be a separate affair. So I don't see why that would be an issue, because whenever you're interfacing with the public side, they're giving, you're not getting Social Security. Kathy, in all capital letters, is getting Social Security. Okay, and when you do your status correction, the difference between the two becomes more clear. Also, when you do status correction, SBC, and these processes, and you start operating privately, you start to realize that you can essentially gain the ability to tender negotiable instruments, and you could basically pay yourself. There are different processes to do that, but you could start to tap into your own credits without having to go through a public entity. Okay, so, and that could be done at any point. Crystal says, I want to conditionally accept my property taxes. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just accept them and return them? See, what happens with property taxes is it's a presentment. Okay. Anything you receive from the public side is a presentment. So whenever you receive a public obligation, it's sent to your attention. Why? Because if you haven't, let's say you haven't corrected your status yet. So you're just acting as the surety. Okay. But that doesn't matter. You can still accept it and return it. Okay. You would just have to choose which jurisdiction you want to do that. Do you want to do it in equity, or do you want to do it in common law? Okay. With equity, we use notices of acceptance, and we stamp and return the presentments as accepted. But there are no conditions to add here, because there's already an agreement, and your signature basically discharges the obligation. So there's nothing new that needs to be added here. The only thing that's missing is your understanding that your signature pays for it. Okay, because the gold and silver, the gold was taken away. So we don't have any more money of exchange. We just have money of account, credits, FRNs, or other types of currency. Legally, the only way to pay a debt now is other than actual payment, is acceptance or performance. It's actually performance, which in this case is to accept the presentment and return it for set off. Okay, in the common law, we have a notice of tender for set off, which is then enforced using the private administrative process. In equity, it's a little different. There is an enforcement process in equity, but it's more streamlined. That brings me to another announcement. On January 11th, and we probably need to put this up on our website. Let me make a note to do that. Sorry, before I forget. Otherwise, I'm going to forget. Okay. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. On January 11th, 2025 at 11 a.m. Eastern, on Telegram, the same Telegram group that I shared with you guys, the one that's free to join, we're going to be doing a 2-hour live event with my mentor for equity, Julian Swan, where we're going to dive in deep into equity, what it consists, what are the different processes involved in equity, how to invoke equity, and then we'll provide a path forward for those who want to learn, whether through self-study or through mentorship or both, how to learn how to bring equity. Now, I can tell you 3 months in, it's not something you're going to learn in a day or even a week. I'm 3 months in and I'm getting it. I'm getting it, but I'm still just, I know where I am in the process. Okay, so that's on January 11th. I just made a note to have one of my team members post that all over social media so that you guys know exactly how to get into that event. But go ahead and block it off in your calendar for January 11th, 2025 at 11 a.m. Eastern for 2 hours. Okay. Jonathan says, hello from British Columbia. Hey, what's going on? I was actually in Vancouver not too long ago, and then I was even in Washington State right across the border not too long ago. But beautiful area, beautiful nature. Imagine it's pretty chilly there right now. I was in Vancouver in October. This was a few years back. It's long before I was involved in any of this stuff. But I enjoyed myself. I'm in the process of sending a family court magistrate a conditional acceptance. Can she refuse my offer? Yes. The court will do it. Court will definitely refuse your offer. Have you corrected your status, Brady? Are you a secured party creditor? Have you established your UCC contract trust? If you plan to use common law, you're definitely going to want to complete all of those processes. Now, the good news is you could also discharge the obligation in equity, and equity doesn't require any particular status. Okay. In equity, the way it works is whenever you receive a presentment from the court, it's just like any other presentment. You now have a liability, but you also have a benefit that you can accept it with your signature and return it, and that discharges the obligation. And the minute you accept it and return it, it's been discharged. Even if you have to enforce it, now sometimes you do have to obviously enforce it by standing on that in court, but you're not there on general appearance. You would be there on special appearance as what's called the accounting defendant. You're just there to help the judge, who is the banker, to set off the account to settle the matter and close it. Okay, because remember, all courts are commercial. So, but all courts have equity in them. They have essentially all courts have 2 jurisdictions, not common law, although someone mentioned that they now have a common law court, but that's different. Okay, so in the commercial courts, it's either maritime admiralty, commercial jurisdiction, which is international contract disputes, commercial side, or you have equity. Okay, and equity is kind of hidden. They won't tell you about it, but you can invoke it in any court. But you have to learn how to bring equity. And that would be the simplest way to discharge any court obligation, including an arrest warrant, a court summons, arrest warrant, appearance, anything. Okay. Now, as you get deeper into the system, if you're dealing with criminal charges, jail time, prison time, you can still use equity, but it becomes more, the deeper you're into it, the more challenging it is, but it's always possible. There's always a remedy in equity, 100% of the time. You just have to learn how to bring it. Well, you don't have to go into the courts, but if you get a summons from the court, you would still need to deal with it in some administrative manner. So again, it depends on whether you're dealing with an equity or in common law. But to stay in honor, you would have to accept whatever presentments you get from the court and return them for settlement. Then it just becomes a matter of which jurisdiction you're using to do that. Echt, I'm sure I'm pronouncing your name wrong. I apologize for that. Thank you for your work. Nice that I can be a part of it. Is there a translation function? We don't have a translation function, but maybe on YouTube there's a translation function. I think YouTube has a feature where you can do like captions in different languages. So, but we don't have something natively. It's a great idea, though. Duly noted. The interesting says or asks, so for a self-employed newcomer to this, I appreciate your videos. My question is, I know some about A for V. Do I need a trust to make this happen? Contact the Treasury. Hope I asked this right. What are you trying to accomplish exactly? The interesting. If you could start with your end in mind, then we can kind of reverse engineer that. If you could just objectively, if you could just clarify what your objectives are. What are you trying to accomplish? GC asked, does it help if you authenticate? Help for what? You don't need it for the SPC process, but you can use it to your benefit for certain processes. It can be helpful. In fact, I recently sent my 2 copies of my birth certificate to be authenticated. They've already been authenticated at the state level. Now I'm looking to send them off to the federal. So I've been traveling, so everything's gotten a little slow for me because I'm here in Colombia in South America. So you don't need to do it for certain processes, but it is used in certain processes. Okay, what Crystal said here, you guys are going to want to do what she just said. Okay, what Crystal just said. Hit the like button. When you hit the like button, you're paying for this video because I'm not charging for this, right? So hit the like button. Also consider subscribing to help grow because that also helps me reach more people. And I can continue to share free content like this to get the word out to as many people as possible, to help as many people as possible. Yeah, hit that, smash the heck out of that like button. I appreciate that, Crystal. Thanks for reminding me. Would you return the prop tax to the county or the treasury? Well, first of all, you're not returning the prop tax itself. You're returning the presentment. It's called a presentment or an offer. Okay. Presentment is probably the most precise term. Okay. Which is because you've received it, you now have a liability. But the liability is not to raid your personal bank account and send them your hard-earned funds. The liability is to accept and return it. So in equity, and this would probably be true in general, we always return the presentment to the return address on the envelope where it was sent from. You always return to the sender. And then sometimes you would send a copy of your notice to other parties so that there's more parties that have liability to set off the account based on your acceptance. But you really only send the presentment to one place. That's you send it back to you return it to the sender. How simple is that? You return it to the sender. Okay, super straightforward. Silent Walk says most of their terms and conditions for payment are right in the brochure. They use their own rules against themselves and then say it's not acceptable. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? What, Silent Walk, what is your objective? What is your positive goal? When I say positive goal, I'm talking about a goal that you want to achieve that has some kind of positive benefit for yourself and others. Yeah, we can call it a net positive outcome. So what's your positive goal? Okay. So instead of playing the blame game or being the victim, because one of the things we want to do is we want to level up, we want to transcend the victim mindset. Because I used to have a victim mindset. not immune to that. We want to transcend the victim mindset and move beyond that to our positive goals. I want you to be wildly successful in achieving your life dreams, as long as they're dreams that are positive. I'm not going to support dreams to enslave humanity or dreams to, cause inordinate amounts of harm. I'm never going to support those kind of dreams. In fact, I will definitely oppose them. But if you have a positive goal that you want to accomplish, I want to help you do that. Okay. Yes, there's a lot of deception. It's a big game. It's a big commercial game. Don't take it personally. Just learn the rules of the game and learn how to transcend the game to go to the next level. When you're playing a video game, you don't take it personally. Maybe some people do. But you take it seriously in the sense that you know that in order to get better at whatever game you're playing, you need to know the rules and you need to practice, being good at what you do. So focus on you. We know that the so-called bad guys love to play with deception and mind games. We know that already. We don't need to keep rehashing that. Now we need to figure out what we're going to do about it. Okay, you see the difference in that? It's a mindset shift. Thanks, Crystal. Appreciate that. Z, I'll see you on the 11th. Yeah, it's going to be a great event. Like I said, it's going to be live on Telegram. And all you have to do is join our private but free Telegram community. No payment required, and you'll be able to be there. So I'm really glad that you're going to be there. When you accept and return a bill to a corporation, because when you accept and return it, that's your signature infuses that document with commercial value. Your signature infuse every document that you sign. In fact, there is no value until you sign something. Okay. And by the way, when I say sign, you can sign with a stamp. A valid signature can be a digital signature. A valid signature can be a stamp that you create with your signature on it. It doesn't have to be just by your hand. Okay. Have you ever put a bond in a court case? No, I haven't personally. Great question. Have you? I haven't. If someone in the community has and they want to share about it, that's awesome. Please share. In fact, come to the private study session and share your experience. Isn't conditional acceptance basically your own contract? No, not necessarily. It's a counteroffer. Conditional acceptance is a counteroffer. Okay, so let's go back to the basics. So someone makes you an offer. Okay, and this presupposes that it's an offer for a new contract. If there's an existing contract, it's not an offer. It's just basically asking to honor an existing contract. So someone comes along and says a new offer, or it could be a change to an existing contract, like new terms, almost like rewriting the contract. Hey, I know you've been working at this corporation for a while, but we're going to need you to cover your face from now on. Change the contract. We're going to need you to poke yourself with untested chemicals. Change the contract. So that would be like a change or a new contract. Okay. So now that you've received the offer, the liability is on you to respond somehow to that offer. And there's really just a few ways you can do it. You can accept it. You can conditionally accept it. You can acquiesce, which means you do nothing, and the other party may assume that you've accepted it, or you could refuse it. Okay. But your conditional acceptance still needs to be accepted by the other party. There needs to be an unconditional acceptance in the end, and then it becomes a contract. Okay. And remember, acquiescence can be treated as acceptance. So when you acquiesce, that's why a lot of times when you acquiesce, they take it as you've agreed. So therefore you have a contract or a recontract. Restore the Public says, keep up the good work. Thank you. Appreciate that. Just change your status to get rid of all the contracts. Yep. And you may keep certain contracts But now that you're operating from the private and you have control of your negotiable instruments, you have many more options at your disposal. So you may still continue to use certain contracts, or you may revoke certain contracts. It's up to you. Eric saying, I showed my wife how to be tax exempt on her paycheck. She couldn't believe it worked. So when you say she couldn't believe it worked, did she actually do it? Are you talking about the W-8-BEN for an employee? I'm not sure what you're talking about. That's the only thing that I can think of. If she's getting a paycheck, she's obviously an employee, and the process to essentially remove yourself. I mean, it's basically the W-8-BEN. What it does is the corporation will no longer take funds out of the paycheck to kind of prepay for the taxes. You may still get a presentment from the IRS, but then you just accept it and return it and to discharge it. That's a different matter. But when you say she couldn't believe it worked, so what worked already? Just filing W-8-BEN or accepting and returning the taxes? Does the state or county have to know about your different status before they accept anything? We do public notice in the county recorder, and it could be in any county, because sometimes people will run into an issue where if you're trying to, some people have tried to file in their own county of residence or domicile, I should say, not residence, because we're not res, we're not property of a trust. Res is property of a trust. We're not resident. We are domiciling or sojourning. But the bottom line is, what we have learned is that you can file in any county. As long as it's filed in a county recorder, then you've put notice in the public side. And there are other ways to give public notice. It's getting really hot here, so I'm going to be right back, because I'm going to turn on the air conditioner because it's getting very hot here midday. What time is it also? It's only 10:30 in the morning here, and it's already steaming hot. So I'll be right back. Hopefully that'll make things more bearable. Crystal says, you won't be sorry for becoming a member. Just listen to the info you're getting right now. Yeah, and the great thing about membership, there's a couple of benefits. You're going to get to meet with me every single week, and other members. Like I said, usually about 25 to 50 people showing up for each session. Yeah. Actually, I'm not even sure. I should probably keep track of that. That's just what I remember. People can interact with each other. You have a chance to actually speak and share your story. I don't restrict your time. In the beginning, I used to restrict how much time everybody could talk, but I don't do that anymore. As long as you're being respectful, you have basically an unlimited platform. I mean, I'll cut people off who start to take us, off on a really deep, side path and way off the path. But for the most part, you get a chance to interact. Of course, you have access to all the courses, and depending on the membership level, you also get access to small group coaching, where we're in a group of maximum 7 students. So you get a lot more personalized attention. Stain your concrete. I'm not even going to ask you about that. I'm not even going to ask you about stain your concrete, bro or sis. We're not even going to go there. And does any of this have to do with the IRS looking at it as income? Your question is unintelligible to me. Please ask your question. Please reformulate your question to be precise. I should probably do a class on how to ask questions. Okay. The way to ask a good question here is, first of all, in your own mind, clarify what your objective is. Like, what am I trying to actually achieve? What's my actual objective? Then look at the obstacles that are in the way that you're not sure how to remove them or how to address them, and ask a question about that. That's how to formulate a good question. Okay. That's the simple version. Jonathan says, I interviewed a guy that does it in Canada, bonding cases. Great. Share a link to the interview. Love to hear more about it. How do you teach the judge to set off your account? You don't. He already knows how to set it off. The judge is a banker. The judge is a banker. He doesn't need you to teach him how to set off an account. He already knows how to do that. The game he's playing is he thinks you don't know what you're doing, and he's probably right. So you need to learn what he's doing and learn your part to come in as the accounting defendant. We're talking about equity here, although there's similar process if you use common law. So you're not teaching him to do anything. You're doing your part. You're performing on your side of the deal, and then just standing on the rock that you've done. Your acceptance is done correctly, and you're just asking. At that point, you're just asking the judge to set off the account, to close the account. That's all you're doing. So you're not teaching him to do anything. He's going to school you unless you know what you're doing. Thank you for your hard work sharing this. You got it, Kathy. My pleasure. My pleasure. This is all I do, folks. This is all I do. I mean, that's not entirely true. Obviously, I have a life. I like to spend time with friends and get exercise and enjoy life and do things and travel. But I maximize the amount of time I spend on this. And it's just because I want to help. This is my way of helping create more freedom in the world. There's different ways to do it. There's different approaches. This is just the way that I've decided to do it. Silent Walk says, using conditional acceptance, I got a $7,500 penalty waived on a pension contract. Amazing. That's great. Share that. The best way you can help others is to share more about how you went about that process and kind of share the story of it. You know, you can redact your personal information if you want, but just share more of it, create a video, post on YouTube, post on social media, come to the private study sessions and share your story with everyone. Just get the word out so that more people can replicate your success. Okay. That's how you can take that win and multiply it or magnify it, is by teaching people how you did what you did and just being more specific. But definitely congratulations on that. Okay, you're getting a little better with your question. You're getting a little better. We're still a little bit in that area, but now I feel like I can at least have a chance of answering your question in a reasonable way that could be valuable. So to rephrase the question, do I need a trust to initiate A4B to discharge bills? It's actually two separate questions. Or do I contract the Treasury? So again, it depends on how you're doing your discharge. I don't use the term A4B. I never use that. That's not what I call it. I just call it acceptance. Okay, so if we're doing equity, if you're invoking equity, which is a jurisdiction, then you don't need a trust to accept it, because there already is a trust. It's called the Cesta KV trust, and you're just simply acting as the accounting defendant. You're just doing your job that you already have, which is to accept it and return it. So no, you wouldn't need a trust in that case. Now, if you want to use negotiable instruments and have more control over using negotiable instruments, and even have the ability to tender negotiable instruments, literally to walk into a bank and say, hey, here's my bill of exchange, then yes, you will not just a trust, but you'll need to have corrected your status and established your UCC contract trust with the Treasury. And that would be, to answer your second question, that would be your UCC contract trust, which is just another way of saying the secured party / creditor process. Okay. And those are filed through registered mail with the Treasury in 3 different locations. And that's what establishes your ability to tender those negotiable instruments. But that's different from equity. These are 2 different things. Okay, just keep that in mind. I don't want people to conflate them. A lot of times people who invoke equity, and I'm not sure it's, all or nothing. I have my own opinions on this. I don't necessarily agree with everything that my mentor says, but he obviously knows a lot more about equity than I do. But he's, he takes a very hard line. He doesn't think people should get involved in any of the status correction, et cetera. And it's true that specifically in pure equity, you don't need that. But I still think that it's of tremendous value to correct your status and become a secured party, especially if you want to operate in commerce privately and use negotiable instruments. Gotta go, but I just joined your Telegram. Can't wait to look through the files and learn. Awesome. Great job. Great job. White monkey holding peach. You guys come up with the most epically ridiculous or ridiculously epic names sometimes. I don't know. White monkey holding peach. That just brings an image to my mind. What official way for Americans to declare themselves living beings? Well, why do you need an official way to declare yourself a living being? Why do you want to do something official? Just complete your status correction, which is a private process. You do give public notice by filing certain documents with the county recorder, with the Treasury, with your UCC financing statement. So there is a public notice to being served, but it's a private process. So it's not, it's not official. It's not of an office. Let's look up the word official. What does official mean? I mean, from the word, it means of office, but I'm assuming public office, but I want to double check that. Okay. I installed recently a VPN, and sometimes the connection stalls a little bit. Hopefully that's not going to happen. Let me just reconnect. Official, authorized or approved. So who's approving it? Who's authorizing it? Whose authority do you need? Isn't the whole point of becoming sovereign that you're not subject to any other man-made authority? So if that's true, why would you need an official to sanction your declaration of status? I don't understand that. It doesn't compute. Okay. I like that term, accounting defendant. I didn't make that up. That comes straight from equity. That comes straight from equity. That's not something I invented. Can't take credit for it. Accounting defendant. When you go into court in equity, and in equity, we're not afraid to go to the court because we know what's going on. We know it's all just banking and commerce, and we know that the judge is a banker, and the judge actually earns indirectly through the bonds associated with the case. We know all of this. So we're just asking questions to clarify that, just to bring the truth out. That's all we're doing. So you're not the defendant. In fact, in equity, there is a maxim: the position of the defendant is always preferred. In fact, you can't be in equity as the plaintiff. You can't be in equity. So anybody who's telling you that the only way to get a remedy is through lawsuits or litigation, and by the way, I just want to come here and say it, not naming any names, but anybody who tells you that the only way to obtain a remedy is through litigation is either lying to you or they just don't understand how it works. They haven't fully grasped how it works. It is a way, but you cannot bring equity as the plaintiff. You have to step out of equity to be the plaintiff. Okay. So in equity, the position of the defendant is always preferred. This is Regina. Okay. Hey, Regina, how are you? David, a question. Is Form 1090-B part of the 1090 process? I don't know. Which process are you referring to? I haven't used these forms. So I'm not sure. I did do some experimentation based on some processes that were published, but I never saw anything come out of it. And there was not really any educational foundation. So I'm not focusing on those forms. Not that I would never, ever use them, of course. I'm not saying that, but not really focused on them. Stain your concrete. I love it every time I say that. The difference in a set-off versus discharge. I've understood that the IRS looks at discharging as income. And you become responsible for taxes on the discharge amount. Okay. I'm not sure what you're asking, but any liability you receive from the IRS as a person, in other words, to your person, you can discharge it, whether in equity or in common law. Now, if you intentionally establish an EIN number for a business, a private business trust, a corporation, you are responsible because you have specifically contracted with the Treasury through the emission of an EIN number. So now you are responsible for the taxes, but you can still reduce your tax liability, as many have learned how to do. And you can also learn how to tender negotiable instruments through your business in order to set off your business liabilities, including any tax liability and other liabilities up to the level that you reach. So it becomes less and less of an issue over time. So your question is still a little bit convoluted, but hopefully I was able to give an answer. Check this out. I can't tell if he's being sarcastic or not, but anyway, I'm glad you guys got value of it. So you can't tender a negotiable instrument. No, I wouldn't say that you can't, but you're gonna have like a much higher success rate. And once you finish the process of SPC, it's specifically the SPC or UCC contract trust that opens the door. Once you go through that process, you're going to immediately see how it unlocks that ability. Okay, through the very paperwork. That's why it's important to go through it, because when you go through that paperwork, you can see how that ability is being unlocked for you. Okay, if you haven't gone through it, that's probably why there's confusion. You might think, well, it's just enough for me to sign it. Technically, that's true, and there are cases where a negotiable instrument has been accepted for someone who didn't correct their status. So it's not like an all or nothing thing, but everything becomes easier once you've done your status correction, okay, and your SPC. Thanks, Benino. Yeah, I mean, where in the world do people come up with these names? I don't know. It's like they were bored on a Sunday, or they just didn't have creativity, or maybe they're just trying to be provocative. I have no idea. Stain your concrete. I'm sorry. I'm not really sorry, but stain your concrete. he's going to come back, he or she's going to come back and say, well, we actually stain people's concrete. That's a contractor service. I'm going to get some haters now. Can't stop laughing now. I'm sorry. Smash the heck out of the like button on this video so we can send it out to more people, so we can help more people, please. Smash the like button. Join our private but free communities on Telegram and Discord. I'll share the link one more time. These are free to join. There is no monetary cost to join them. And you can start to network with others who are part of the Freedom Studio, formerly conditionalacceptance.com. So stain your concrete. SYC says, ultimately, if you get a tax liability, then you can accept it for value. Okay. Again, I don't use that term accept for value, but here's how I would interpolate and explain what you just said in maybe in a more concise way. Anytime you receive an obligation from the public on the public side, which includes taxes, any public obligation, also court presentments, okay, you now have a liability because you received it. Okay, that's the liability. Now, before they took away the gold and silver, the only way to discharge that liability or to satisfy it would have been through payment, i.e. gold and silver, or money that's backed by gold and silver. Okay, actual money of exchange. Since that's no longer the case, the only other way that you can satisfy that obligation, tax liability or otherwise, is through performance. In this case, performance means accepting this presentment with your signature and certain stamps, depending on the process, and returning it back to the sender. And that means you've done your acceptance. We don't call it accepted for value. It's just acceptance. Okay. Kathy says, please explain what is meant by equity. Sure, I'll explain it, but I'll also just give one more plug. On January 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern for 2 hours on our Telegram group that I've already shared multiple times, I will be conducting a joint live event with my mentor in equity, Julian Swan, who his brand is called Standing on the Rock. He and his wife, they teach equity full time. That's all they do. Okay, and we're going to dive in deep to what equity is. It's going to be very, very comprehensive. Julian calls it a graduate level course, and I agree. I agree with that. Having already been 80% through the course, it's definitely graduate level material. Okay, but once you learn this material, you now have life skills that you can apply. Okay, equity refers specifically to a jurisdiction. A jurisdiction of law where certain rules of law apply. Okay. Equity was created hundreds of years ago to address what were perceived as certain limitations in common law, where common law was seen as too rigid and inflexible to create equitable outcomes or fair outcomes, because equity is really about fairness in resolving these commercial disputes. Okay, so in equity, equity involves different processes, and yes, it's very different from conditional acceptance because there is no conditional acceptance in equity. In fact, there are no affidavits. However, in equity, they use notices, which, although they are not exactly the same as affidavits, they are actually very powerful. Almost everything you do in writing in equity is accompanied with some kind of notice, and they are very powerful once you learn how to use them. Okay, but it's not exactly the same as an affidavit, and it's not a conditional acceptance. So I hope that clarifies it. Damien says, I guess I need to understand how without litigation because I really don't want to go that route. Well, that's great. So that would be equity. Because even with the common law, with affidavits, you still, you're finding yourself having to file in court to get summary judgment in order to perfect the lien or perfect the outcome of your estate, because there aren't common law courts except for Ohio. Someone told us they have one in Ohio. So there's one common law court in Ohio. But other than that, if you're dealing with all the courts, you're dealing with either maritime admiralty jurisdiction, which is basically international contract disputes, the law of the water, the land law of the sea, or you're dealing with equity, which is the laws of fairness. And equity applies to men and women. It doesn't apply to corporations. Okay. So without knowing more about your specific case, it's hard for me to give you more specific advice. Your answer might be in equity. You might get benefit from doing an administrative process. It really could be either way. I don't want to tell, I never tell people what to do or that you can never do this or that. It's always up to you. It's exciting to hear actual answers. Great. Standing concrete. Yeah, I mean, we were teasing you. It's just the way the username comes across. It's a little bit strange, but I get it. I get it. I don't want to detract from that. Hopefully you have very successful business, and hopefully you can operate your business privately. I don't know how you currently structure it, but this might be a great opportunity for you as a business owner. And I love doing business, by the way. I've been in business since I was 11 years old. I've been selling. Maybe you could set everything up so that your business, if you haven't already done this, and this is true for anyone, not just for you, set up your private business trusts, and then have one of those trusts or manage either a holding company or manage directly the corporation that you operate your business under publicly. Or you could set up your business under a PMA so that all your clients are private. And either way. I imagine for this kind of business, you're probably going to always have a public corporation, just due to the nature of the business, but you can have the corporation managed by your trust, not by you. Okay, so that would be a good step. Awesome. Go Damien. Go Damien. You're gonna, you're setting yourself up for a lifetime of success after that. Everything's gonna just become a lot clearer for you. That's the beautiful part about it, because when we do these things ourselves, yes, there is still filings and documents, but we're not hiring attorneys to do stuff for us. You have to know what you're filing. So just through the process of reading through the documents and knowing why you're doing them, that's already a huge level up. You're going to ask better questions. You're going to have better ideas. You're going to have more clarity about how to move forward. You're going to probably do like I do. I don't conduct commerce with the Social Security person anymore. I don't open up any new accounts. I mean, obviously I have some existing accounts that I haven't closed down, but every new account that I establish is only on the business side, or it's a private trust account. It's not an SSN account. Okay. So you're going to have all these insights. It's just going to become a lot clearer how to operate in commerce from the private. TJ Parker says, so I'm a member. I'd like to know how I can write a conditional acceptance letter. Well, first of all, what's the subject matter? What's the offer that you're looking to conditionally accept? Let's make sure that there isn't a simpler solution, like just a straight acceptance. Because you may be, a lot of people will overcomplicate that. I've been guilty of that, overcomplicating it. If it's just a public presentment, you don't need to add any conditions. You can just accept it. So let's understand the nature of the case, and then we can kind of go from there. What's the stamp say for the return of your acceptance? Come to a private study session. I share more about that there. I don't share a lot publicly on the mechanics of equity, and there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, I signed a very specific covenant with my mentor, a private agreement where I agreed not to share course materials without specific permission. Secondly, the way that we steward equity, because we don't want people to do it half-assed, so we want people to commit to learning the entire process. So I do talk about it more in the private study sessions, but if you want to really, really learn the exact process, you're going to need to study it in a lot of detail. My birth certificate has been authenticated on the state and federal level. They also need to do pertaining to birth certificate. Well, again, if you're doing SPC, you don't need to authenticate your birth certificate to do the SPC. But if, for example, you're trying to, I don't know, use credit privacy numbers, then you would just need to follow some material that teaches you how to do that. Creditor Academy had some recent videos where Paul Michael was talking about how you can use the double authenticated birth certificate to generate, essentially it generates a CPN, and that you can, depending if you use it properly, you could essentially use it as a clone, as a mask for your social security number. I haven't done that yet. I am interested in experimenting. Like I said, I have my birth certificate state authenticated. I'm now sending it off to be federally authenticated. But it just depends. There's different processes that use this. I think the 0% has a process that uses it. It's always going to be dependent on what the end-to-end process is you're trying to accomplish. It's not just something in isolation. When accepting the presentment, do you return the statement, the coupon? Okay, I'll just explain to you how it is in equity, and I'm probably in common law, it's the same way or very similar. You never detach anything. You never detach anything. You send the entire presentment, and you actually stamp the entire presentment every page. Okay. There's special ways to do it. We get into that either in the private study sessions, or if you take a course on equity, we'll teach you the A to Z of how to do it. But yeah, you're not going to be detaching anything. That's up to the other side. GC asks, when we get our trust EIN number, is it irrevocable trust? Well, I don't know. What the EIN doesn't establish the trust. The trust is established through what's called a declaration of trust. If it's an express trust, I mean, it could be an implied trust, but most of the trusts we're dealing with are express trusts. So it's actually the declaration of trust that you create, or the trust indenture, that establishes your trust. And then you would decide if it's irrevocable. I recommend pretty much almost all the time doing irrevocable because it provides much more asset protection. However, it is more restrictive in terms of the roles that you can play in the trust. So just keep that in mind. You're giving away pure gold. Well, I appreciate that. I'm doing my best, my man. Doing my best. Cheese mouse, which could be a mouse trap. Could be a mouse trap. Just pay attention. Can you please expound on the stamp for returning conditional acceptance? No, I can't, because I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. You might be mixing two different topics. What's the first step you would recommend to start the journey? Wow, that's a really great question, actually. My answer is probably going to surprise you. I would sit down and write out your clear goals for yourself. What are you trying to achieve? What's your purpose in life? Why are you here? What do you want to do? What do you want to change? How do you want the world to be different when you leave it versus when you came here? So I would always start with that and get very clear on it and have fun with it. Enjoy the process. It shouldn't just be laborious, but you should also take it seriously in the sense that you are going to commit to, you're writing something because you intend to commit to seeing that through. Okay. And the more energizing your mission is and the more powerful it is, the more motivating it probably will be for you, which is going to give you the fuel to get up every day and then take the next step and the next step and the next step and the next step. Okay. The second thing I would recommend, and I recommend this is advice I give to all my private clients, by the way. So I'm now giving you advice that I give to all my private clients and all my consulting clients. So step one is set your specific and objective goals. What's your life purpose? What's your plan? Map it all out in as much detail as you can and get really energized behind it. Okay. A subset of that could be to figure out how you want to operate commercially in order to realize those objectives. Okay. Step three is get organized by creating, setting yourself up with a project plan so you can keep track of the different processes and interactions that you're doing. I use a tool called ClickUp. ClickUp. It's a project management tool or a task management tool. It is free to start if you're just one man or woman using it, maybe up to a couple of people with limited features. You can use it entirely free. Obviously, if you start using it extensively, you probably have to pay for it. It's not that much. But use ClickUp, Asana, use a spreadsheet. If you use Trello, whatever you want to use. Use good old-fashioned pen and paper, although that's going to be a little more difficult because it's not as easy to change things. Get all of your action items, start capturing everything into a project plan so that you can get it out of your head and into something so that you can just reference it. Because most people are walking around like, what do I do next? What do I need to focus on? Oh my God, did I remember to do that? It's insane, and you're not gonna get anywhere that way. Okay, so have a project plan. After that, I would say if your specific objective is to operate privately and start to move everything into the private, the number one thing is get your foundational paperwork done. So that's status correction and secured party creditor. Okay, status correction and secured party creditor. The second one is also known as the UCC contract trust. Now, what you can do is you want to work with someone who can walk you through the process A to Z. Okay. There are two options I can throw right out at you, but you can really work with anybody who knows what they're doing. Okay. Creditor Academy, they're the organization I hired to help me with my paperwork. I work closely with them. Paul Michael is a great guy. I've met with him on a number of occasions. I love what they're doing. They have a pretty solid, detailed process where they're going to generate all the documents and they're going to answer all your questions to make sure you're good to go. So that's always a good option. If you want something a little more economical, maybe not invest as much, maybe if funds are tighter for you, if you want to just be more on a budget, Divine Trust Babies, whom I interviewed recently on my YouTube channel, she has a great process. And I'll just share the link to her stuff since I know she has a YouTube channel, but I don't think she's posting a lot on her YouTube channel. So let me just share her link there. And there are others. There's Yusuf L's sbcuniversity.com. There is aprillajune.com. She has a manual. Actually, I bought it. Let me show that to you guys. So for people who like to have something in your hands, this is by April. She sells it for about $150, $150. And she puts it all into a manual. And it's pretty comprehensive. And then she also gives you access to digital versions of the documents. And then she's available by email to answer questions. But she's not doing like a masterclass, or as far as I know, it's not like with Credit Academy where they do multiple weekly classes, or they have study sessions like they do with Divine and with myself. No, I mean, it's just email support. But hey, if you're like a person who likes to sit down with a cup of coffee or whatever you like and read through a manual carefully. I mean, I bought it, even though I'm using someone else's process. I bought it because I love to sit down and read through this. It just, every time I read this, it increases my understanding of these documents every time. I mean, it's a good use of time to do that. And it's a good use of $150, $150 to buy the manual, and you support April and her work. Okay. So I have no affiliation with her. I'm just telling you what I did. SPC stands for secured party, secured-party/creditor. So it's two different roles. You're the secured party because you're obtaining a security interest in the debtor, and you're acting as the creditor. Okay. Some people have also called it establishing the UCC contract trust. That comes from Patrick Devine, but essentially it's the same process. Cheese Mouse says, off to join a private study session. Thank you. Sorry. No need to be sorry. Unless you stole something, you haven't really done anything wrong. When's the next private study session? So we do them, just so you guys know, we do them alternating Tuesdays and Thursdays. So this week was the Tuesdays. That means next week it's on Thursday. The sessions on the Thursdays are in the evening, like 8 p.m. Eastern. And then the Tuesday sessions are 2:30 in the afternoon Eastern. So it's kind of like alternating weeks, but there's only one per week, one session per week. So it's not like Tuesday and Thursday every week. Okay. We've just set it up that way. Honestly, between you and me, I don't know anybody else where you can get into 4 study sessions a month or one a week for $7.77 a month. I don't know anybody else who's doing that. Okay. So get in, and you're going to see, and also you get access to all the recordings of every study session we've ever done. Okay. And not only that, but my team members, what I have them start doing is now we upload 3 versions for everyone. 3 versions. So we do the video version, the audio only, it's like a podcast. And then we do an AI generated summary with bulleted points, fully searchable, and a full transcript. So if you're looking for something, you can actually search for your keywords in the transcripts before you go listen to the particular study session. And then if you get some good hits, you're like, now I need to go watch that study session because they talked a lot about the specific process that I'm interested in. So saves a lot of time, because sifting through 2-3 hours of video just to find relevant information, if you're not sure that your topic is covered, I mean, I would agree that's not a great approach. That's not a great approach. We got 52 people watching here across different platforms. Wherever you're watching this, smash through the like button. Wherever you're watching this, smash through the like button. Make it happen now. When you smash that like button, what are you doing? You are paying for this free content with a flick of your thumb. You are paying for this content, and you're helping me to reach more people, because the only way we're going to really make a difference is when we reach more people. Okay. So smash through the like button. And now if you're getting a lot of value and you haven't done so, please either subscribe or follow me on social media. On Facebook, obviously it'll be a follow or a like, and on the page, and on YouTube, it'll obviously be a subscribe. Okay. Kevin Struss says, how do I get a hold of you on these processes? Okay. It's a couple different ways. Step 1, join the private free community. Step 2, if you're ready to, jump in, become a member, and then you get to talk to me directly on Zoom. That's the easiest way. If you need more personalized help, you can either book a consultation with either myself or another team member. Right now there's 2 of us that are taking consultations, but I think Kathleen, who I mentioned earlier, is now as a former partner. She may have a page up there soon as well. So it'll be 3 of us. But let me go ahead and share that link with you guys. You can book a consultation. It's an hour-long consultation, and it's recorded for your benefit. So you get a recording with an AI summary. People have told me sometimes that just the AI summary that they get summarizing the meeting and the action items has been worth the entire conversation, other than just us having a chance to meet face to face online. So, but that's really only if you need very specific help that may be a little more time sensitive. We don't really want to rush on anything, but I know sometimes people feel like they have their back against the wall. So you can either book a consultation with myself or Blue if you want to. What's the most effective way? Well, really the only way that I know, again, because it's a common law process, you would have to go into the commercial court and file for summary judgment or file, for default judgment. But you would have to walk into the court having already corrected your status, being a secured party creditor, and having perfected your actual administrative process. In other words, you've really done a good job of documenting your process, including your certifications of non-response and your notary protest. In other words, you have an airtight process that if you put it in front of a judge or a magistrate and they look at it and they're like, yep, everything's clear, summary judgment, okay, awarded in your favor. So that's how you enforce it. And then when you have that combined with the actual administrative process, you now have a contract that's actually worth the face value of the contract, so you can monetize it. And since you're an SPC, you can tender negotiable instruments, you can write bonds, okay, you can do a lot of things with it. You can collect, you can perfect the lien and go after the lien. Okay, it just depends on the actual process. Hope that answers your question. But I don't really know another way to enforce. It's not clear to me how you could not use the courts if you want to enforce an administrative process. Stain Your Concrete says, before I had an accountant, I think you meant to put a comma after before. That's how I'm going to read it. Before, comma, I had an accountant lawyer tell me trusts were without the apostrophe, were only for people that had a lot of money. And I'd heard from my clients about it, and no one knew anything as to go private. It never inked or inquired, I guess you mean. So just to kind of restate what you're saying, it sounds like this accountant, CPA, lawyer was discouraging you from using trust. And I get that, because everybody who's on the public side who knows the game is trying to keep everybody else ignorant of the game. That's what they've been doing, folks, just keeping you ignorant of how it actually works. So of course they're going to do that, because it's to their, that's the game they play. They want to maximize control, because for them, it's all about control. It's not about the money. There is no money. It's all about control. They want to control your mind. They want to control your mind. Okay. So that's what they're doing. It's all about controlling you and your behavior. Okay. And no wonder they'll stay stable and say discourage you, because that allows them to retain control. Okay. Hope that makes sense. Hope you'll keep this up, because as the guy said, true to your goal. Thank you for all your work. Thank you, Benino. Appreciate that. Yeah, I have no plans to stop. We'll see what the universe has in store for me. We'll see what the creator has in store for me. But I feel pretty aligned. I feel like I'm pretty good at intuiting if I'm on the right path or not. And every day I wake up, I get blessings. Every day I wake up, I get blessings. I have the best relationship with my parents that I've ever had my whole life, with my mom, my mother, and my father. We have the best relationship we've ever had in my whole life. And they don't even necessarily even like or agree or understand everything that I'm doing. But just think about that. Yeah. So I appreciate you. I mean, you just got to take your clue from creation. If you're on your path, you're on your path. So I'm going to keep on trucking. Lionel Daniel says or asks, I don't understand what you mean by status correction, exclamation point, exclamation point. So I'll rephrase that as a question. What is status correction? That's the question form of what you're asking. What is status correction, David? I'm glad you asked, Lionel, and everyone else. Let's talk a bit about it. I'm going to pull up some of my notes here to help you to explain myself a little better. Depending on the process that you follow, there are going to be a collection of documents that you are going to establish, sign, in some cases, notarize, in some cases, file, in order to declare your status, to correct your status. Now, at a high level, or as a broad overview, status correction means that you are correcting your status from being a public entity or being the surety for a public entity or identifying as the public entity, your name in all capital letters, which is a public corporation, to now being clear and clarifying for yourself and for others that you are now operating privately as the private living man from the private side, subject only ultimately to natural law, the laws of the creator, which is simply to cause no harm and defend yourself from harm caused by others. And that's really all there is to it. And of course, to have clarity in your mind of the difference, to know the difference between right and wrong, to know the difference between truth and falsehood to the best of your ability. But you're not subject to all this commercial code. Okay. So that's what status correction is. Now, specifically, depending on who you hire, status correction is going to include documents such as a declaration of political status, a restoration of former status, a declaration of the Naturalization Act of July 1779, witness testimony affirming American state political status and identity acknowledgement, acceptance and deed of reconveyance or conveyance certificate of assumed name, declaration of copyright. Most of you guys have heard of that one. Act of expatriation, multiple acts of expatriation, depending on the different variations of your name in all capital letters, cancellation of all prior powers of attorney, Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, DNA paramount claim, and common carry declaration. Now, that's just one version. If you work, depending on who you work with, those documents are going to vary. So I'm not telling you that that's the only way to correct your status. So don't take it as like there is only one way to do it. Mary asked a good question. Someone asked a similar question earlier. As a retired public servant on a pension, can correcting my status affect my pension? My understanding is no. Why? Because the pension is being dispersed to your name in all capitals, and you just happen to have your name in all capitals here. So I feel like I'm talking to your ens legis right now. But Mary, the ens legis, is the one receiving the pension, and as long as it's, because it's coming from the public side. So technically it shouldn't, as long as you don't act belligerent or combative or intentionally rescission that contract. I don't see why. I mean, I'm not 100% sure about that because I don't have a pension, so I don't have any firsthand knowledge of that. But your correction of status is not it's not automatically revoking all your existing contracts. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But do obviously keep doing research to verify that. I don't want you to take my word as the gospel because I don't have firsthand experience with that. Terry asks, would part of status correction start with becoming a state citizen, or is there more steps to be done? I just answered that. So if you're, go watch the replay, and I went over it multiple times. But I just explained it's like a bunch of different processes. Thanks, Cheese Mouse. Appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you in upcoming private study sessions so we can meet face to face. You can ask me questions. You can share from your story. And we can kind of dive in deeper to help figure out the right strategy for you. So I look forward to seeing you there. Divine Rights says, hey, David, what do you think about the DBA and creating the agency relationship, then delegate from there? I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you're talking about anything related to status correction and SBC, I just recommend going with a process that's well-defined. If you're talking about setting up private trusts and to manage your businesses, I think there's a lot of benefits to, like I would never conduct commerce with a sole proprietorship, or I no longer conduct commerce with a social security person. So I think a DBA refers to that. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can answer your question properly because I'm not sure what you're asking. All about control. Yeah, it's basically narcissistic psychopathic behavior, if we want to kind of get down to brass tacks in psychology. The principle of mentalism says the all is mind, the universe is mental. We live in a mental universe. This is why mindset is so important. This is why everything is emanating from our thoughts and our mindset. And it's why if you have a victim mindset, you're just going to keep propagating a reality where you're the victim. So they know this. Now, there is something called a narcissistic and a psychopathic mindset. They're not the same thing. They're not the same thing, but there are some similarities. And they're basically ultimately based on a lack of empathy, either a complete lack of empathy or a large lack of empathy, and a sense of needing to control people like they were objects. Okay, so playing with people like they're objects. So if you're a pure psychopath, everything is just your plaything, and you feel no fear. I'm talking about primary psychopaths. You feel no fear. So you're not afraid of consequences, which ultimately could lead to your demise because you'll probably make stupid decisions because you're not afraid of the consequences. So, you know, there is like a downside to that. Narcissists, depending on the level, they can still feel fear, but they have no empathy, basically. And it's all about controlling others to get what they want. So, couple of different resources if you want to learn more about psychopathy. Thomas E. Sheridan has a great book called Puzzling People. H.G. Tudor, who is claims to be, I've never met him, so I can't verify it. He claims to be actually a narcissistic psychopath himself. Comes across very intelligently in his videos. He's created like an entire platform about teaching people about narcissism. So you're probably going to learn something or two if you listen to some of his interviews. So those are some resources you want to learn more. But basically, the behavior of the system is narcissistic, psychopathic. That's why it seems that they do things. That's why they do things that are completely devoid of empathy because they don't care. And that's why there's phrases like "it's just business." But the way the system operates is there's always a remedy. There's always a way out. So you just need to learn how to operate this, you know, using the system at a higher level. Or you could be someone that just opts out completely. That's a little bit harder to do in the world where it's so ubiquitous, but it's not impossible to do that. Have video evidence of Bloomberg reports showing the movement of funds. We can train our own forensic accountants if you want to. What's your objective? What are you trying to accomplish? Again, that's always the first question I ask. What is your objective? What are you trying to actually accomplish? My face is a little puffy because I've been getting a lot of dental work. So, and you guys might see I've been a little bit more sensitive than usual because I've been getting some dental work. I'm getting, unfortunately, well, fortunately for me, because now I'm going to suffer less, I had to get a couple of implants. That's part of the reason why I'm here in Colombia. I have a great dentist here. By the way, if you ever are are going to come to Columbia for any reason and you need some connections, just hit me up. Happy to help. But yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about, Divine. I'm not saying that the things you're talking about don't have validity. I'm not familiar with what you're discussing. You know, and it would be easier for me to answer your questions if you would just explain what your objective is, if you're willing to share that. Dr. Biz 1958, where can I learn the proper steps of writing a letter of conditional acceptance to the bank that just denied me? Okay, so in the beginning, when I first started, that was a strategy that I wanted to do. But I've since changed my thinking. I've leveled up my thinking. And so now I understand that I don't want to do any commerce at all with the Social Security person. It's just, it's too difficult to control, and it doesn't give me maximum protection. So what I'm doing is now I'm only looking to get credit on the business side. And the beautiful thing about doing credit on the business side is every business you set up has its own credit score. Actually has multiple credit scores, but it's like its own entity. That's why I don't do that. And the other thing is there are other strategies to bypass that. If you have a high credit score and you got denied, honestly, if you really need that card badly, or that, I would just call up the bank and do their reconsideration. Because it's probably just one item they're missing. You know, if your score truly is 740, there's probably just something that they did that wasn't clear in your application. So why blow it up into a conditional acceptance? It's like you guys want to go and what's the analogy? You want a sword fight over the fact that somebody ate a piece of your apple. Okay, somebody came and grabbed a slice of your apple without your permission, and you want to pull out a gun on them. That's what it sounds like to me when you want to do conditional acceptance for some of these scenarios. Okay, and I used to be that guy. Don't get me wrong. I'm kind of making fun of myself too, but we don't need to do that. There's always an easier way, and try to create relationships. You know, don't be adversarial. They want, you know, you're classified as an enemy combatant, and you don't want to basically give them more fuel to do that. Okay, so start establishing your business credit, start moving all of your commerce to businesses or trusts that you set up and you control as a trustee. Okay, or if it's just a simple matter that you felt, hey, I should have been approved because I got a high credit score, call up the bank and go through their reconsideration process. So that's my advice. Everything on the public side is paid through from the credits from the Treasury that are generated from these instruments that, you know, these birth certificates and the bonds against them. Everything comes from the same system. Okay, it's just a usury. It's a fictitious system where all the money is money of account, and it's all just moving numbers around on ledgers, assets and liabilities. Have you heard about baby land deeds, trademarking name, fingerprints, trust those? Baby land deeds, no. Sounds very interesting. Trademarking is a commercial process. So there's private common law copyright, which is on the private side because it's in common law. It's not a commercial process. And then there's public side processes like a trademark. There might also be a private equivalent of a trademark. Foreign grantor trusts, that refers to trusts that are not in the U.S. jurisdiction. So they have a foreign address and a foreign trustee, a non-U.S. person trustee. And I'm not sure what you meant by we can trade our own securities. I mean, if you become a secured party and correct your status, you can get the ability to tender negotiable instruments through the bank. You don't really need to trade them, but you're basically just creating currency to set off your obligations. So, I mean, if you want to trade securities, you can definitely do that. Antoinette saying, I have definitely learned that there are more ways that are better than conditional acceptance stuff. Trust now my goal. Yeah. So two things. First of all, conditional acceptance is still valid. Go watch my recent video with Kathleen Acker. There's definitely scenarios where a conditional acceptance is going to make a lot of sense. So we're not going to make a categorical statement, say that they have no value. But for certain processes, especially discharging your public obligations, Antoinette, you are correct. There are a lot of better options. Okay. And there are options that are going to lead you down the path, like you said, where you start operating in the private through your trust. It's all about the trust, baby. It's all about the trust. So great insight, Antoinette. Objective is to verify the movement of the funds. Why do you want to do that, Divine? What's the reason behind the reason? Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do that? What are you trying to accomplish ultimately that is bigger than the details? Trying to get you to think big here. You're caught in the left brain prison. My objective is to do, we need to do X for Y and Z. Okay, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do that? Smash through the like button on this video if you're getting value from this. That's how you pay for this content. I've been live here for more than 2 hours. Happy to do it. Not charging for this, but to keep doing that for free. Nothing in life is free. So I'm not charging you money of account for this or FRNs, but I am asking you to give something in return. And that the most basic thing that you can do from an etiquette perspective is just to hit the like button to help promote this video to more people. That is going to make the biggest difference of all. Okay. So smash through the like button wherever you're watching this. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe so that I can keep letting you know, for example, the next time I go live, which will probably be often on a Friday or a weekend, because that's when I have more time. So it'd probably be on a Friday, maybe on a Sunday. It would rarely be during the week just because of my schedule. But consider subscribing. That also allows me to keep in touch with you, but also allows me to reach more people so that we can keep spreading this good information to more people. And if you're on Facebook, you won't be able to subscribe, but you can follow the page. Okay. And I also have a Rumble channel. Let me share my Rumble channel for those of you who like Rumble, and you can give some support over there. And all of my videos are uploaded to Rumble, so it is an alternative if you'd rather not use YouTube. Although YouTube is helpful in the sense that we can reach a larger audience, so I'm not going to poo-poo that. That's my Rumble channel. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I have a LinkedIn company page there as well. Let me pull that up for you guys real quick. Give me a second-a-roo here. Yep, just going to pull it up here. Sorry, I just noticed with this VPN, sometimes pages tend to load slowly. Hope you guys can hear me okay. I think the connection's been decent. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, like I said, I'm a businessman, among other things. I love doing business. I love connections. And I love spreading the word on different social media. LinkedIn is considered a very mainstream platform. So if I can get good information about operating the private, trusts, status correction, secured party, conditional acceptance, equity, if I can get that information pushed out to the audience of more than 1 billion users of LinkedIn, that's going to be great. And if you want to connect with me there, go ahead and do it. Ryan K says, trust have been confusing to me, especially in terms of different persons. Probably that's because you just haven't studied it properly. It's like anything else. You know, think of everything that you need to know here in this movement as graduate level education, just to simplify things. My equity mentor, Julian, has often referred to his course as a graduate level course. And I agree, having been through 80% of it, I agree with that assessment. and I want you to think of all of this as graduate level study. Okay. So you're going to have a sufficiently evolved consciousness and mind, specifically with respect to your ability to learn and take in new knowledge and incorporate it and take the time it takes to learn it in order to do that. So it could be as simple as reading a book. There are a lot of videos on YouTube already that walk you through trusts. But trust is a special kind of contract. Okay, there are both private and public versions because there are statutory, non-statutory, but I'm just going to talk about private. Private means you don't have to register on the public side. There's no registration required. There's no filing required. So it's a private contract, usually between 3 or more people. Sometimes there's an overlap in these roles. Usually, sorry, I want to use this hand so you guys can see. Usually between 3 or more people. And like I said, 3 or more roles. And then usually there are some cases where you could be more than one of those roles, but you have to be careful there. So you have the grantor. Oh, okay, before I say that, the purpose of a trust is to hold some assets, some property in trust called the res, to be managed by a certain party. We're going to talk about that for the benefit of a third party. Okay, so the grantor is the one who is, or also called the creator or the trustor, O-R, or the settlor, but I usually call it just the grantor. The grantor is the one who takes the property which they currently own or have control of, and they essentially gift it and put it into the trusts. Okay. And they establish the trust by co-signing the trust indenture, and then handing over control of the property to the trustees. The trustees, as the name suggests, are the ones who are entrusted to manage the property of the trust for the benefit of a third party called the beneficiaries. Okay, so the trustees are said to have legal title over the trust, and depending on the document, they could have a lot of authority. I mean, it's pretty impressive how much power they have. Okay, no wonder narcissistic psychopaths and narcissists are abusing that power. And also because you're letting them, you know, we've let them get away with it for so long. It's just like ingraining bad behavior. But the true role of a trustee is to be very noble. And this is, and I want to take a moment to plug a new service that I'm going to be launching in January. As far as I know, nobody else is doing this. Nobody else is doing this. Okay. Now that I'm saying it, everybody and their grandmother is going to launch a service like it, which is fine. I'm not worried about anything competitive. But we call it the Trustee Network. And the reason is because now that we're all moving to the private to operate, to set up all these trusts, well, we have an issue. There's suddenly a shortage of trustees, right? We need people who can act as good trustees that we can rely on, as well as people who are committed to keep up-leveling their education so they can keep getting better at what they do. So they treat it like a profession, basically, and it can be a profession. So we're creating the Trustee Network to bring together people who either want to hire someone as a trustee or want to act as a trustee or both. The service hasn't launched yet, but I'll share the link here if you want to just read a little about it. We will be launching in January. It's going to be a monthly subscription membership. It's going to have its own private community. It's going to have all its education. And we're going to basically conduct interviews with everyone. We're going to get to know everybody personally so that we're going to do, probably at some point even do some background checks and other things so that everybody's fully vetted with their references. And then we're going to do warm introductions where we're going to get together and we're going to introduce you. So let's say Ryan needs a trustee. We're going to introduce Ryan to Susan. And Ryan's going to have a chance to decide if he wants to hire Susan in whatever capacity he needs as a trustee. Okay, so those are the trustees. And then you have what are called the beneficiaries. Now, any person, corporation, other trust, living, man, or otherwise could be a beneficiary, and there could be multiple beneficiaries. Okay, you can even put the funds back into the same trust. So the beneficiary it has what's called beneficial title or beneficial interests in the property. What that means is the beneficiaries, they don't get to control the property or how it's managed. They don't get to control how the trust is managed or really do anything. All they can do is just expect the trustees to do their job properly per the trust. Okay, but they can't expect to gain a benefit. Okay, as long as they are a beneficiary. So hopefully that's helpful. And just give me 1 second here. Whoops. Just need to do something. Sorry about that. Okay. You guys are saying, what is he doing? You'll understand in a minute. I need to add. How do I add? Okay, I need to add something. I'm not sure how to do it. I'm still learning how to use this software. Well, gosh darn it. Couldn't figure out how to do it fast enough here. I don't want to leave you guys hanging forever. I'll be gosh darned. Guess it's not as easy as I thought it was. Okay. Anyway, all I was going to do is put up a little sign saying I'll be right back because I will be right back. Just need to run to the little boys' room. Be right back. Thank you for your kind indulgence. And thank you to the 62 people who are currently watching us. Please smash the like button and subscribe or follow. Sorry about that. This is the Rumble channel, by the way, if anybody wants to find it. That's how you can find it. I also posted the link. TJ says, I would like to change status. That's great, but why do you want to do that, TJ? Why do you want to do that? And you don't have to tell us. I mean, if you want to share your goals, I always appreciate that because we can learn from each other. But why do you want to change your status? Why is that so important to you specifically? Thanks, David. I agree. I'm not studied up. Yeah, but don't beat yourself up. Don't take the opposite path. Say, well, I can't do this. I'm not ready for it. I definitely don't want to discourage people. All I'm saying is get organized with clear goals, clear process, and start, keeping track of what you're doing, and just keep your study going. This is not, a lot of times when I hear comments, the interpretation I get is they're looking for a quick hit. Like, I want, stick that needle in, I just want a quick hit. It's not how it works, folks. This is a long game. This is a long game. Okay. Now, does that mean you can't realize, major accomplishments within, a reasonable time, like 6 months, a year, a couple of years? Of course you can. Of course you can. If you commit yourself to really following through within, I would say, a couple of years, you can see a dramatic, if you were to look at like a 2-year period in my own life, I've seen a dramatic shift in every dimension of my life. And we're talking not even just finances. We're talking my health. We're talking my relationships. I told you earlier, I have the best relationship with my parents. I don't want to use the word parents because I don't want to, they're not renting me, with my mother and my father than I've ever had. Okay. Even though they largely don't even really understand or even agree with everything I'm doing or think that it's necessarily valid. So just imagine that paradox. Okay. But, focus on the positive, focus on specific and clear goals, seek out mentorship. I know some people are like, whoa, it's just making a sales pitch. No, mentorship is the shortest path to obtaining objectives. Yes, you will have to pay for mentorship. Sometimes you'll have to pay with FRNs. But if you can learn how to generate, learn how to tender negotiable instruments through your business trust, and thereby setting off all your life expenses that are now business expenses. And so even though it's a different path, you can learn how to do that. So essentially achieving the same outcome of having access to infinite money, so to speak. Would that not be worth some investments on the front end? I mean, you see, people are not working for free, folks. The principle of commerce is a workman is worthy of his hire. That's the first maxim of the 10 maxims of commercial law. So definitely, more than anything, it's just getting clear on your objectives, creating an initial plan, and just start taking action, start moving forward on it. I can't tell you how long it's going to take you. This is not about instant gratification. You're going to need to do the work to get there. I've been on this live for 2 hours and 20 minutes, and we're just cracking the surface. And that's what it takes. It takes a commitment. Damien says, my partner gets annoyed with me. Honestly, I just hate living a puppet. Okay. So I'm just going to talk to you man to man. Bro, you're on your mission. Your mission is the most important thing. As a man, I'm a man, so I'm just going to talk, like I said, I'm talking man to man for this because that's the role I know. A man on a mission. So what I would do, now I totally get it. If you have a partner and they're not on board with it, because everybody's coming at this stuff from different angles and different time frames, and some people are exposed to it sooner and later. And because of all the programming on the mainstream side, if your partner is like most people, they're just programmed, by the mainstream, they're going to just almost naturally, almost as a knee jerk, unconsciously, or, you know, just they'll just automatically create an obstacle. So your challenge, since I imagine you love them and care for them and care about them and value the relationship you have, your challenge is to find a different way to bring them into, you know, to align them with your mission. Okay. To have them be the woman behind your mission, for example, supporting you in your mission. Okay. And they would have to generate their own enthusiasm about it, so they would want to get involved in it. Okay. So it's all about the conversation, and it's all about what you do, inviting them to join you, inviting them to watch videos like this, inviting them to attend sessions with you so they can start to see what's really going on and participate. And so that we can ask them questions like what your partner's dreams and goals are for themselves. Okay. So yeah, I totally get it. I get it, man. But the mission, if you're committed to it, the mission's always going to be the number one thing. It's always going to be more important than anything else. And at some point, it becomes more important than you. Like, this is now, you know, bigger than I am. This, you know, Freedom Studio does not equal David. That is not a true statement. Okay. The Freedom Studio has David as a component or as a participating party, but this is bigger than me. Okay. Bigger than all of us. So yeah, we got to have those you know, sometimes tough conversations with our loved ones. But it's how we show up, right? If you come across, the reason why the sovereign citizen or SovCit, I guess I shouldn't use that word too much because the video might get censored. The SovCit is kind of like conspiracy theory used to be when they first started using that term in mass. It's such a great way to shut people down psychologically. It's such a great psychological weapon. But there's, like anything in life that there has to be an element of truth to it. Otherwise, it wouldn't resonate at all. So the SovCit, there is an element of truth to it. So don't be a SovCit, be a sovereign. Don't be a SovCit, be a sovereign. Okay. And when you act as that kind of example, beautiful things start to happen. I'm telling you, it's just, you know, that's the way it is by natural law. That is correct. Yeah. When you create a trust, if you're the grantor, you can choose to either be a trustee or a beneficiary. You can't be all three. If you have someone else grant the trust, then you could be the trustee and the beneficiary. Okay. Yep. See what the slave masters do, the people in charge, the reason why they're so successful in controlling, I mean, you have to ask the question, how do they literally control billions of people? Because they're such a small minority. The dark occultists, the elites, they're always a very, very small number of people. So how do they get away with it? They're weaponizing people's ignorance, apathy, and laziness against them. So they're weaponizing people's ignorance, apathy, and laziness against them. Okay. So people who just want all the benefits, if they think that things should be free, they can't understand why everything's not free. And they don't understand why that leads to violence, why that mindset actually enables violence. It facilitates violence. Okay. Because it's a socialist mentality, which is violent by its very nature. Okay. You cannot have a socialistic system without shedding blood, without harming people, without coercing them to do things that they don't want to do. It's impossible. So socialism is always immoral 100% of the time, without exception. And most people think socialistically. So there you go. And a lot of times they think it kind of in a programmed way, like they don't, if they would actually consciously sit down and think about what they're thinking, they would probably change their mind. Mitch Levin says trusteeship can be simplified by the responsible party. That is true. It is the responsible party. Trustees can charge a reasonable and fair fee and not be a beneficiary. That is correct. And for those, there's an exciting opportunity here to work as a trustee. I mean, I'm giving you guys, for those of you who are like, how do I combine, my passion for sovereignty with something that I can actually earn a living from? I just gave you the answer, folks. I just gave you the answer. You can learn how to be a trustee the proper way, and you can offer your services to multiple clients. I mean, you could be working with multiple trusts. It doesn't even have to just be one. It's not like a full-time, it's not like an employment contract. It's not. It's a very specific type of contract. It's a private contract. How exciting is that? And you can expect to be compensated. And because you're the controlling party and the responsible party, you have essentially all the control, and you get to be very creative in making sure that these trusts, fulfill their mission. And this organization, the Freedom Studio, operates under one trust. It's actually going to operate under multiple trusts in the future. I'm setting that up, but it's already operating under a trust. So imagine being a trustee for the Freedom Studio. I mean, how powerful! What a great role that might be, So for those of you, and I'll be providing, as part of the Trustee Network membership, we'll be diving deep into how to, create your professional profile as a trustee, the kind of skills that we need to develop and so forth, how to maximize your value, even what to charge, because that's something that's, I mean, people should charge their fair worth. So what I say to people is look up, administrative work positions in your area, or executive administrative in your area. If you have no experience as a trustee, start with that and then work your way up based on your experience. Timothy says, I've been watching you and following you for a minute. Well, that's not a long enough, bro. You got to watch longer than that. So I appreciate you following, but you just got started, man. So you just got to keep studying. Go back and watch all the videos. Do I need to set up a trust account in order to discharge my debt? Well, is your plan, do you plan to, well, first of all, what's your objective, Timothy? What are you trying to actually accomplish? What's your objective? And I'm not just talking like my objective is to discharge my debt. What is your actual goal in life? Are you a business owner? Are you trying to establish a school, another kind of project? I mean, what are your big projects that not having access to funds is holding you back? Because that's, if I were to guess, if your goal is to generate more value in the world and you want to move forward, probably the number one obstacle is just having access to the resources you need to do that. So I don't want to project my goal on you. I'd rather you share it. As far as discharging debts, if you're talking about Social Security person debts, you have two choices. You can do it in equity, which requires no particular status and there aren't any prerequisite structures, or you could learn how to take control of negotiable instruments, which is the common law side vis-a-vis your status correction, your secured party creditor. And then you can secondarily start moving all of your expenses into your businesses. And then, yes, on that side, you would be dealing probably with more than one trust, probably with multiple trusts. It's like a whole universe. I think people should fill obligations they agreed to. Well, I agree with you. However, in equity, there's a concept called equitable rescission. So if you enter into an agreement and you realize you made a mistake, you can fully rescission it. So, I mean, there are times when we make genuine mistakes. But yes, if you enter knowingly into an agreement, and then really you shouldn't enter into an agreement unless you really intend to follow through on it. In other words, our word should be our bond. Our word should be worth the weight in gold, and we should be very careful not to make not to promise to do things that we're not actually going to do. Okay, I'm just going to grab a little more coffee. Be right back. By the way, if you need help, if you need a second set of eyes on any of your documents, that's something that we can offer as a service. And you can just send an email to support or through the website. I'll put the support email. It's a little bit crazy. Or you can just go through the website and send a message to the website if that's easier. We do have a couple of services where we can either create documents for you, like trust documents, security agreements, and so forth. Or if you've already done your document, you just need someone to review it. There's two ways to do that. You could set up a consultation, or you could just hire us to just, through our team to go and review it for you. I would say even if you don't hire us, always have a second set of eyes. So that's why the peer groups are very helpful. So you can reach out to someone in your network and say, hey, can you just take a look at this before I file it? Just make sure I didn't make any mistakes. It's always good. I do that with all my documents now. I didn't used to do that. Big mistake. Didn't used to do that. Big mistake. Big mistake. It's never too late to learn. Now, any legal document, such as a trust or lawful document, I should say, like a trust, is going to be, I'm going to have it reviewed by at least one other set of eyes, 100% of the time. And I'm usually, I like Paul Michael's approach of hiring international attorneys. Quick story, I just hired a couple in Pakistan. They are attorneys to help just review one of my trust documents, not to create it or validate it, just to get a second set of eyes from a legal perspective. And because they're in Pakistan, it's much more affordable than hiring a U.S. attorney. And actually the people I've talked to internationally, they're actually very interested and intrigued to learn more about all these processes, or keep learning about them. So there's a strong interest in working with trusts. So it's a great resource. I mean, you could probably pay as little as $5 an hour for an international attorney, depending on where in the world you hire them. But regardless, even if you want to pay a higher fee because it's more important to you and because you can, just make sure somebody reviews your documents. Really, really important. That's true, but you can only control who? You can only control Damien. So work on yourself, maximize your potential, step fully into your sovereignty. And then what you're going to see is that's going to start to influence people around you, including your relationships, your family, loved ones, but even the people you interact with, maybe professionally, colleagues, co-workers, clients. So you focus on you. The most important mission in life is to know yourself. The most important mission in life for you is to know yourself deeply. How you tick, why you do what you do, why you make the choices you make, what are the choices you actually want to make, what do you really want to do in life, what are you here for? You got to know all that. Once you know you and you start to propagate that out in an authentic way, you stop worrying about what other people think, because you can't control them and they can't control you. All you can influence them, and the way you influence them, of course, is through your actions. Damien clarified, no, my partner believes it all along with me. I just focus more on my time. Okay, well then you just need to get more in alignment as far as her being on board with the amount of time you spend on it. Just kind of conveying that in a different way. And also, it's not really a matter of belief. Crow 777 once said famously, belief is the enemy of knowing. And that's something I've thought, for a very long time. It's all about the knowledge. It's not about belief. The belief is really irrelevant. You can believe in nonsense. You can believe that you owe taxes, that you're a taxpayer. That doesn't make it true. Mitch Levin says, I say if you are fighting with your friends, loved ones, or family, truthers want to blame the other side. So Damien already clarified that they're not fighting. It's just maybe she's felt like he was using a lot of time on it. Maybe didn't understand that. But yeah, there are a lot of cases where people are fighting. Like I said, I have the best relationship with my mother and father now that I've ever had in my entire life. And I'm probably the most controversial to them than I've been my whole life. If that's, so that's a real paradox. But yeah, it's all about communication. It's all about getting, conveying ideas. That's all we can do is just share great ideas. Timothy says, I have invested in a lot of books. Now moving forward to find a good mentor. Tell me. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, hopefully you'll, you're here. So hopefully you'll consider me and our community to help you with mentorship to the degree that we can. Definitely jump into the membership as a starting point. Or if you feel the need to, you feel it'd be valuable to have a consultation, you can always do that. Everything through the website. I'll just post a link to the website here for people who just joined. But yeah, I mean, hire other mentors too. There's some other great mentors. Like I said, my mentor in equity, Julian, we're going to do an event together in January. I've talked about that. You might find that he's a great mentor to work with, and there are others. I do think true mentorship in the sense of like making the commitment to work with a mentor through their program, whatever process it is, that is an important part of it because it'll generate a commitment on you. And when you have a commitment, you're much more likely to follow through on it. Juxtapose Art says that's a great service. I guess you're referring probably to, I mean, we have a lot of services. I'm not sure if you were referring to the Trustee network or to the documents review. But I mean, we're just trying to, the services side is really just to support you as you move forward. Now, anything that we offer in a service, you could do yourself or you could hire someone else to do it. You could learn how to do it. It's just to help you shortcut the process, right? But the educational side is like, you're learning how to do it. The way I look at it is I wanted to learn how to create a trust document so that if I get help, for example, of someone helping me to create one based on a spec, I don't necessarily have to write it from scratch, but I can go back and read it and know exactly, why it's valid, if there are any weaknesses, like I can really, decipher it. So I appreciate that feedback from you. Indonesia is affordable too. Yeah, and also I also hire virtual assistants. Now they're not the same as international attorneys, but they're looking to work. They have families. They're looking to grow professionally. So on the website, you guys will see I have a service called Hire a Virtual Assistant. We already have one VA in the Philippines currently working for the Freedom Studio, and we're about to hire a second one. I've been interviewing people in Nigeria, Kenya, the Philippines, Canada. I didn't have anyone from Indonesia yet, but I'm sure there are a lot of great VAs in Indonesia. And it's a win-win because you're going to pay a very fair wage, very reasonable wage. You're going to get somebody with a certain skill competency, and and it's going to only cost you out of pocket, you know, like whatever budget you set. So if you know, there are some VAs that will work for as little as $5 an hour. I personally don't want to pay less than $8. In fact, the rates, the minimum I'll pay will probably keep going up. But it just depends on the individual. I feel like I want to pay them at least $8 an hour. It's not even based on anything specific. But we have VAs that go all the way up to $50 an hour, just depending on where they are in their profession. It's mostly about their professional skill set, because you'll find some of the VAs overseas, even though they're in countries where you could typically hire someone cheaper, they may have a lot more experience, and they're going to obviously charge a higher fee because a workman is worthy of his hire. But it's a great way to grow your concerns. And if you're a business owner, I mean, I can't imagine a business owner not having like some kind of administrative support. This is a long live, Lisa Marie says. How giving your time, David? You appreciate time given as most valuable asset. Yeah, I mean, for me, this is, there's the joy of doing this. I mean, this is not painful. Obviously, I'm enjoying interacting with you guys and sharing with my knowledge. I also consider it to be a duty as well, because we've got to get the word out. If I ever hope to live in the kind of world that I envision, we need more people knowing this stuff. So that's a big motivation. Yeah, but it's a pleasure. And, I'm here as long as I need to. We'll probably wrap up close to the 3-hour mark because I have some other stuff that I need to do and participate in, just to kind of make it, a reasonable time. But yeah, I was happy to get on here for 3 hours. Will the class be online or in person? So everything we do is online. Everything we do is online. Same thing with Julian. All his classes are online. He has people all over the world joining. Having said that, it is a long-term goal of mine to do some live retreats, shall we say, like, basically retreats where people attend in person. Actually, that's a very unfortunate term, in person. Where they attend in real life or manifested in their manifested form as a man or a woman in the same locale. Or I could just say in person, fall back on that. We do have a strategic plan to do that, but that's not something that's going to happen, in the next, I would say, 3 months. CHSH asks, how can you deal with a bill collector that is not bought over the debt? There's a couple of different approaches. If you're going to bring equity, which is if it's a personal obligation through the Social Security person or the ens legis, the simplest way, in my opinion, especially if you're moving all your commerce over to private entities, is going to be just to do an acceptance through equity, because it requires no particular status. And sometimes you can do it without going to court. Sometimes you still do have to go to court sometimes. And if you put them in dishonor, they may just make it disappear. I mean, it's no way to know for sure what would happen, but that would be the approach that I would take. If you're already a secured party creditor and corrected your status, or if you plan to do that very soon, you could also use your corrected status to tender a negotiable instrument. You could use it to run an administrative process and then enforce it. So there's a couple of different ways. Awesome. Well, I think I got to the end of the questions, which is good. So I feel like we covered a lot. Let me know if you've enjoyed. Comment below, comment in the comments if you got some value, and maybe share like your biggest takeaway. I'd love to hear what your biggest takeaway was from the live today. Just that gives me some feedback. If you have specific questions, you can keep asking them on the video after the live is over. However, the best way to get support through the Freedom Studio is to actually become a member and attend our private study sessions. So there you go. Betty asked, David, did you take Julian class? Yep, I'm about 80 to 90% done with the class. Jen says, when we can enroll for your next class? So I don't have workshops like I did the first part of the year. We just have private study sessions. So the best way is to become a member. So I'll just post that link one more time. And then we do weekly private study sessions every single week, alternating Tuesdays and Thursdays. And there we go. So feel free to come. Like I said, the benefit is you'll be able to talk to me directly through the Zoom meeting. There'll be others present. You'll be able to share your ideas with an audience of potentially 25 to 50 people on average. Is actually going to probably keep growing. And share your stories. Yeah, and share wins too. And we have people coming in and sharing, well, I was able to accomplish this, or here's what I was able to do. So that's the main way to get involved, is the private study sessions. They'll probably continue to be every single week. So I'm going to wrap it up now. Appreciate you. Keep up your study. Set your goals. Step number one, set those goals. Not my goal is to discharge a debt. I want to hear any of that. My goal is to create a world in which. My goal is to live in a world where ... You get to decide, because you're the creator in this case. You're the co-creator. Okay, and you have a deep connection to the creator, which you can decide what that is. Okay, everybody's connection to the creator, the all, is a personal, private connection. Nobody can tell you that. That's why true religion is always a private matter. Okay, so just remember that. There's no proselytizing, doesn't apply. That's not religion. That's indoctrination. But we can share good ideas through influence, and others can decide for themselves if it makes sense or not. So I appreciate you. You guys are amazing. Really great, engaging audience. It motivates me to want to keep doing this due to the really good level of engagement. So I look forward to seeing you. For those whose questions I wasn't able to answer, apologize, but keep asking your questions, note them down, and then come to the next private study session. Okay, keep leveling up. You guys are on the right path just by showing up here. Just keep taking the next step, and I'll see you guys very soon. Take care.